if you could level up something you do every day and see rewards in your marriage? Hi, I'm Kirsten D. Samuel, an Aftershock recovery method coach who understands the betrayal caused by your husband's porn addiction, and I'm here to give you some hope today. Last spring, I said goodbye on this earth to my mom. 2020 was full of goodbyes and painful separations. As a person who lives with depression, I knew I had to work through this grief from Mom's death and not stuff it. As humans, we weren't created for sickness and death. So often we experience deep grief. But if I have the hope of salvation through Jesus Christ, then my separation from Mom is only a temporary one, but very real and still painful. One of the best ways I know to work through the grief and keep depression at bay is to walk. According to mayoclinic.org, 30 minutes or more of exercise a day for 3 to 5 days a week can improve depression or anxiety. But my plan ended up looking very different than it started, because I wanted to do it with my husband. At first, Dave and I began walking every other day. Then, as I realized the walking did help me cope with the depression, Dave and I decided to walk every day. A few weeks into that decision, we set a goal to walk an average of 2 miles every day for the next year. Well, that's when the mental challenge began. Forget the physical. My brain thought, every day for 365 days? Up until this point in my life, I was not a very active person. While I moved and did things, I didn't spend regular time outside and certainly not exercising daily. Who does that? But we did it. 365 days of walking hand in hand. This from a couple whose world shattered more than a decade ago when Dave admitted he was addicted to pornography. Yes, we're that couple. No, wait. We're a new and improved couple, and we did this together. I'm going to tell you how. First thing we did was to set daily goals with positive peer pressure. Walking daily in the springtime when the sun shines and there's a gentle breeze is one thing. But walking daily meant all kinds of weather, especially living at high elevation in Colorado. It also meant walking when I didn't feel well or hadn't had a good night's rest. It meant walking with Dave when we didn't see eye to eye on something. And even when we traveled separately, we committed to walk. We decided if one didn't walk, it blew our daily commitment for both. Now that's positive peer pressure. Each week, we picked a day to exceed our average distance goal. That meant me telling myself I could do it when I'd never walked that far in my life. To mark our progress, we used the Runkeeper app. Dave synced the program to our phones, and as the streak grew, we decided we didn't want to break the chain. Dave's support encouraged me and pushed me to become a stronger person. If I were not walking with him, I'd have been content to repeat the same walk each day. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But without Dave's push for variety, I'd have missed out on the new challenges and personal discoveries I made along the way. Just like recovery from depression and addiction, these daily milestones create the momentum we both need to remain healthy. Working together on a common goal strengthens our relationship. Often, when there's been a betrayal in a marriage, we need to find new ways to reconnect. Walking together can create this new connection, but we had to choose to make it. As a runner, Dave initially struggled to walk with me. He'd much rather be running because he can cover longer distances in the same amount of time. I get it. For him, it didn't feel like exercise at the start. But he knew I needed to do this and wouldn't without his encouragement. He exemplified God's command for us to submit to each other in love. He put my needs ahead of his desires. Talk about a sign of recovery. Well, who supports you to be more than what you are today? What mini goal could you set to bring positive change in one area of your life? Well, here's the second thing we've learned. Consider setting your health goal together as a couple. Walking together, mostly hand in hand, gave us time to talk about our marriage. Remember me saying that we walked when things weren't great between us? Well, we had time to work through these issues. Often, because I felt so frustrated, I walked faster. Well, there's the bonus. I burned more calories and experienced better aerobic activity. And we worked it out. But holding hands forced us to match paces. What a lovely example of what a marriage requires. Dave is almost a foot taller than I. A foot. Therefore, our strides are different. Now, that's probably a duh, right? This means we have to learn to match strides. He shortens his, and I lengthen mine. It's a work in progress. Our strides will never be perfectly matched due to our height difference. Trying to get them close causes discomfort for both of us. It feels awkward. Yet when we do manage to match our strides for a short bit, the ease and fluidity in our walking feels amazing. What aspect of your marriage suffers from an unmatched stride? How does it feel when one person runs ahead and insists the other person get with the program? What can you do to define a better rhythm in this area of your marriage? Well, number 3, identify false expectations tied to your goals and your marriage. I didn't realize it, but I had false expectations for meeting our goal. Surprisingly, I discovered some unrealistic things I thought would automatically happen while we walked. Things like walking daily would burn so many calories I didn't have to watch what I ate as much. Not true. While the walking did help me fight off the worst of the depression, it didn't make a big difference in my daily caloric intake. I also thought we'd set a route and stick with it. I like the routine of walking the same route each day. Dave needs to explore different pathways. Some days all I wanted to do was check the walk off my list. But usually those were the days that Dave wanted to try a different route, and we'd end up going a lot farther than I planned. Another false expectation I had was that Dave wanted the same result as me. Walking 2 miles a day seemed like a huge goal to me, and it was. But Dave needed more challenge. So after we accomplished the 5-mile goal, he asked me to consider a 10-mile goal for our 1-year mark. Thankfully, he knows me well enough to mention the thought and then let me process. But then the day came that we set to walk 9 miles in preparation for that 10-mile walk. The wind averaged 30 to 40 miles per hour. We had decided to walk a beautiful trail in our area that would be an out-and-back walk. We weren't 5 minutes into this hike when I knew I'd have to mentally conquer this decision. Thankfully, I've learned to communicate these thoughts to Dave to get his support. 2.5 hours later, we arrived back at our starting point. Thankful the wind was at our backs for the last part of the hike. We did it. The results looked a bit different as we met our mileage goal, but not our time goal this time around. But isn't that a great picture of marriage? The steep hills seem to come at the worst times, but they can be conquered, especially if you keep your expectations in line. You have to face the reality of your situation, in walking and in marriage. When we were in the initial stages of recovery from the porn addiction, we constantly crashed into false expectations. Things like, Dave thought he'd recover from his addiction without it impacting me. I figured his recovery was on him, but didn't realize the damage I'd sustained. We thought it'd take a few months at the most. Years later, we still bump into some issues that need resolving. We imagined that life would go back to normal once we got through the initial recovery period. Where do you see false expectations in your life? What needs to change to accomplish your goals? How is your normal holding you back from greater freedom and joy? Our normal never returned. Instead, we discovered a new, exciting, authentic marriage. It's more about we than him or me. I believe there are days when being married is the most difficult thing you'll do that day. The pain of the past seems to restrict any forward progress. The idea of setting many goals, especially together, feels impossible or at least awkward. And your hopes always seem to outpace the results. When you do set out to make improvements, false expectations create roadblocks and stall your progress. I get it. I've been processing this year-long project for days and days because I can't believe we did it. It was a giant goal and not easy. Just like our decision to get honest and angry and real about what was broken in our marriage. We decided to choose better, to choose each other, every step of the way. It didn't come overnight. And some days I didn't want to do it, just like our walk. But look what happens when we set those mini goals and hang in there. God fills in the gaps, steadies our feet, and celebrates with us. This last year taught me many lessons I'm still unpacking and applying. Do you know what thrills me most about this adventure? Walking with Dave every step of the way. Oh, by the way, We did walk 10 miles on our 1-year anniversary, but that's another story. For years now, I've wondered why God has allowed this horrible pain in my life, but not any longer. I know God allowed this pain to draw me closer to Him and to care for other women whose husbands are addicted to pornography. Research shows that online porn viewing rates are just as high in men who attend church as those who don't. And TECHCRUNCH reports online porn viewing increases infidelity in marriages by 300%. Now that's shocking, but I'm not shocked anymore. I know there's a battle for our husbands' hearts, and it is destroying marriages. If you find yourself in this place where you need some help to heal from this horrible pain, I offer free resources, a tender heart, and one-on-one help through my short-term Aftershock recovery coaching. You deserve to heal, whether he decides to change or not. You don't have to live with this pain. I can help. Hop on over to KirstenDSamuel.com and click the blue button. Let's talk.